Good afternoon and welcome to the September regular meeting of the Calgary Police Commission. I call this meeting to order and ask that everyone ensure your microphones are muted until you need to speak. My name is Amtul Siddiqui and I'm chair of the commission. I'm joined today by Commissioners Kelly Ogle, Sean Cornett, Susan Mallon, Cherie Nyson-Jordan, Sam Hope, Ayo Adidaran, Aaron Noga, Marcia Hansen, Robert Tenge, and Councillors Jennifer Wyness and Terry Wong. Today's Calgary Police Service representatives are led by Chief Katie McClellan. On her behalf, Inspector Jessica, would you please introduce those you expect to speak during today's meeting?
Thanks very much, Chair. I'll read out the names of who's with us. I'll ask them to identify themselves via a quick wave or their favorite bird call. We have the Chief of Police, Katie McClellan, of course, Deputy Chief Cliff O'Brien, Deputy Chief Corey Daly, Deputy Chief Asif Rashid, Chief Strategy Officer Catherine Murphy, Chief People Officer Kim Armstrong, Executive Director Communications and Intergovernmental Affairs Mike Nunn, the Executive Director of Legal and Regulatory Services Division, Courtney Keith, the Senior Financial Officer, Sabina Lokank, myself as the Inspector/XO, Superintendent Joe Brar, Superintendent Scott Boyd, Superintendent Jody Gash, Business Strategist Annie Sarwar, Manager of the Analytical Unit of Community Policing, Tamara Daku, Acting Staff Sergeant Derek Clausen, Manager of the Analytical Unit of Corporate Data, Rebecca Davidson, Business Strategist Carrie Fierza, Sergeant Brent Hutt, Director of Strategic Services, Sandra Jacoby, Business Strategist, Selena Clausen, Inspector Rob Davidson joining us virtually, the Manager of Business Strategy and Research, Amory Hamilton-Henry, also joining virtually, Business Strategist, Amanda Davis, virtual, Communication Strategist, Jay Hearn, virtual, and last and certainly not least, but joining us in person, Business Strategist of Strategic Planning and Evaluation, Carrie Rack.
Thank you everyone for being here. For those not familiar with our role, our commission is a body of 10 community members and 2 city councillors appointed by City Council and the Government of Alberta. We provide independent governance and oversight of the Calgary Police Service on behalf of all Calgarians. To protect the political neutrality of the police, Alberta's Police Act requires that the police chief report directly to us instead of elected officials. We provide direction to the police through the chief, police policies. We monitor the police complaint process and approve how police budget is spent. Today is one of 8 regular meetings we have each year to openly discuss police governance and oversight matters with the service's executive leadership team and to hear from the public. We also have several private monthly committee meetings where commissioners work more directly with the service on various matters that cannot be discussed publicly. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that today our commission is meeting on the ancestral and traditional territory of the Blackfoot Confederacy, made up of the Siksika, Kainai, and Piikani nations. It's also home to the Tsuut'ina First Nation and the Yahe Nakota people of the Bearspaw, Chiniki, and Goodstoney First Nations. These are the people who made a treaty with the Crown, forming Treaty 7 territory. Calgary is also homeland to the Otipemisiwak Métis government of the Métis Nation within Alberta. Our commission is committed to doing our part to support reconciliation with all Indigenous people, condemn racism and prejudice in all forms, and is committed to being anti-racist. As we start our meeting, allow me to provide a brief overview of the format for those joining us for the first time. The public session of this meeting is being live streamed, and a recording will be posted online for those unable to attend. There will be several presentations from the Calgary Police Service, commission members, and commission staff. Commissioners will have the chance to ask questions or make comments after each one. Once we've completed the presentations, we'll move to the public participation portion of the meeting. Those who have registered to speak will be called upon by name to either ask their question or present on a topic for our consideration. Please note that we do not take live questions during this meeting. Anyone interested in speaking, presenting, asking a question, or submitting written comments for our consideration must do so ahead of time. If you miss this month's deadline, we'd love to hear from you at our next public meeting. You can visit our website, calgarypolicecommission.ca, for more information. Following public participation, we will close the public portion of today's meeting with the chief and I taking questions from the media. Everyone is welcome to observe the media availability, but only media professionals will be permitted to participate. To start our meeting, I will ask for the agenda to be approved. Does any member of the commission wish to request an amendment to the agenda? Hearing no request, can I please get a motion to approve the agenda as presented? Thank you, Commissioner Mallon and Commissioner Nyson-Jordan. Moved and seconded to approve the agenda as presented. Can I get a vote? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Thank you. I will now call for declarations of pecuniary interest or conflict of interest from the commissioners. Hearing no declarations, I will now ask for the approval of the consent agenda. For those viewing today's meeting, the consent agenda is a list of routine items and reports that all commissioners agree can be accepted without more discussion or a separate vote. Does any member of the commission wish to request an item on the consent agenda be brought forward for discussion? Hearing none, I declare the consent agenda approved. To open my chair's report, I would like to take a moment to send our best wishing those marking religious holidays this month. September brings a rich array of religious celebrations, including Milad Nabi, Rosh Hashanah, and Navrati. To all celebrating, we offer our best wishes. And as Truth and Reconciliation Day approaches, we honor survivors and express our deep respect for Indigenous communities and their enduring strength. We don't have these public meetings over the summer, and that said, our commission hasn't had a chance to yet publicly thank the Calgary Police Service for their outstanding efforts during the 2025 Calgary Stampede. With over 1.47 million attendees, this year's Stampede was one of the highest attended in recent history, and CPS played a vital role in ensuring it remained safe and enjoyable for Calgarians and tourists alike. CPS's presence and unwavering commitment to public safety helped ensure a secure environment. We are proud of their work and grateful for their dedication to keeping our city safe during one of these most iconic events. I also want to express Commission's gratitude and appreciation for the pivotal role that the Calgary Police Service and key partners played in the success of the 2025 G7 Summit. Their steadfast commitment to safety and security ensured not only the smooth execution of a complex international event, but also the protection of our communities and visitors. Today, you'll hear directly from a few members of that team and get a glimpse into the intricate operation that put our city on the world stage. Over the summer months, our commission attended a number of events, including the recruit graduation of Class 263, the 2025 Indigenous Junior Police Academy graduation, and the 50-year milestone celebrating CPS's tactical team. We also attended the Canadian Association of Public Government, its Calgary Association of Police Governance Conference, which took place in Victoria, British Columbia this year. This conference brought together leaders in policing and governance from across Canada and some from the US. And together we spent a few days networking, collaborating, and connecting about our future work. It was an inspiring experience. Last month, I had the opportunity to sit down with the Honorable Mike Ellis, Minister of Public Safety and Emergency Services, to discuss restrictions around automated traffic enforcement, sustainable staffing solutions to ensure CPS can meet Calgary's growing population, and a long-term funding strategy to reflect future policing costs. Now, I would be remiss if today, as part of my chair's report, I didn't mention that our commission has made the decision to postpone the formal recruitment for the new chief of police. We recently announced that Chief McClellan will remain in her current role until at least January 2027. Chief, this decision reflects our confidence in your leadership and the stability you have brought during a time of significant operational and strategic demands. Speaking of a demanding time period, I also like to highlight a few of the ways the members of the Calgary Police Service recently delivered on the priorities of Calgarians. I already mentioned their tremendous efforts during both the G7 Summit and the Calgary Stampede. I also want to highlight that the service, through a multi-agency effort known as Operation Certainty, delivered more than 3,400 calls for service, almost 2,500 arrest warrants, and 175 drug-related charges in just 8 weeks. Thanks to CPS's targeted policing strategies, Calgary saw a 41% drop in shootings and a 22.8% decline in domestic violence incidences this summer. It's through these types of initiatives that we see CPS's dedication to advancing responsive and community-centered policing. Thank you to all the members of the Calgary Police Service for your work to keep Calgarians safe. With that, I will close my chair's report. Can I please get a motion to accept this report for information? Thank you, Commissioner Nyson-Jordan and Commissioner Cornett. All those in favor? Great. Thank you. We will now move on to the presentations from the Calgary Police Service. But Chief, I'll turn it over to you first for a few comments.
Thanks very much, Chair. Good afternoon, Chair, Commissioners, and members of the public joining online. Thanks very much for your compliments regarding our couple of big incidents that we were involved in over the summer. And of course, sincere thanks and appreciation to all of you for your continued trust and confidence in me in leading the service with this amazing team. It's been a pleasure to be back with all of you after the summer. As you know, the past 3 months have been exceptionally busy and filled with momentum. Since my last update, our service has made significant strides across multiple fronts, and I'm proud to share just a glimpse of the incredible work that has been accomplished. None of the work I'm about to highlight would have been possible without the relentless dedication, skill, and heart of the exceptional members of our service. I am profoundly grateful for the privilege of serving as their chief. Each day I am humbled by the stories of their courage, compassion, and unwavering commitment to the people of Calgary. Their actions inspire me and remind us all of what true public service looks like. I was fortunate to recently meet with the service's senior leaders and supervisors to share an overview of the remarkable accomplishments achieved over just the past 90 days. The scope and scale of this work is truly extraordinary and far too extensive to capture in full. I will do my best to highlight the efforts that reflect the dedication, innovation, and impact of our team. Guided by your mandate and the priorities set out by the Commission, our efforts have remained sharply focused on 3 pillars: operational readiness, workplace development, and community safety. These priorities continue to shape our direction and drive meaningful progress across the service. We successfully implemented our summer surge measures to ensure frontline staffing remained strong and responsive, while introducing targeted overtime and call-out controls to manage costs responsibly. These efforts laid the foundation for broader transformation now underway through the Service Delivery Modernization Project, a forward-looking 2026 recruitment strategy, and the rollout of enhanced HR practices focused on oversight, tenure, secondments, and promotions. Together, these initiatives are driving a more agile, accountable, and future-ready service. A dedicated team led by SFO Senior Finance Officer Sabina Lokang has begun the critical work of developing our 2027 to 2030 service plan and budget. This forward-looking initiative is essential to maintaining our status as a 5-star police service and ensuring we continue to attract top-tier talent. Alongside the budget, a high-level operation and capital plan, including a detailed cost per officer analysis, is on track for presentation to our executive team in December, reinforcing our commitment to transparency and strategic investment. At the same time, we continue to face deeply concerning realities on our roads. The number of traffic fatalities in Calgary remains unacceptably high. These tragic collisions devastate families and leave lasting trauma for our members who respond to and investigate these scenes. It is a stark reminder of the urgency and importance of our work in public safety. In close partnership with the City of Calgary, we are taking decisive action to address the unacceptable number of traffic fatalities in our city. Central to this effort is the launch of Drive to Zero, a year-long multimedia campaign designed to build compassion, raise awareness, and change behaviors. Aligned with the 2024 to 2028 Safer Mobility Plan, the campaign features emotional video and radio ads that speak directly to the human cost of traffic collisions. In addition, we secured key exemptions to automated traffic enforcement guidelines, with 3 high-risk locations set to be reinstated in the coming weeks. These measures reflect our unwavering commitment to saving lives and making Calgary's roads safer for everyone. In addition to the outstanding police work carried out by our members in the downtown core, we significantly increased our presence this summer through Operation Certainty, and the Chair spoke about that, so I won't add additional details. We remain steadfast in our commitment to the youngest members of our community. As youth crime continues to rise, we are responding with purpose and resolve. We have strengthened school safety and expanded youth programming by enhancing our school resource officer team. And we are preparing to launch a comprehensive youth strategy, one designed not only to address the challenges, but to empower our youth to make better choices, build resilience, and thrive together as a stronger, united community. All of this, our members continue to do what they do best, protect Calgarians. Our shared goal remains clear: to build a safer, more resilient Calgary, grounded in trust, transparency, and collaboration. Thank you very much for that opportunity, Chair, and we will turn it over to Deputy Chief O'Brien.
Thanks, Chief, and thanks, everyone. We'll have the G7 debrief right now, so excuse me. So what I'll do is I'll introduce Superintendent Joe Brar, who everybody certainly in this commission knows from our major event and operational command division, and was the lead on G7 from the Calgary Police Service. And with him is Troy McLeod, who I know has been here before, who was the G7 corporate director for the city, but in his real job is director of mobility for the city. So thank you.
Thanks, Deputy. Good afternoon, everyone. As mentioned, Joe Brar from the Major Event and Operational Command Division. I was previously seconded over the last year to the G7 Leader Summit as the Event Security Director. I'm joined here by my partner for the G7 Summit, Director Troy McLeod, who served as the G7 Corporate Director. We are here today to provide you with the last of the final, the fifth and final report on the G7 Leader Summit. This is in accordance with the Commission's major events policy. While I go through the presentation, the review of the G7 Leader Summit, the final report, in the background, you'll see a number of pictures and videos that are playing. These pictures and videos will highlight the planning and preparation, along with the execution that resulted in a successful summit. So with that being said, as a reminder, the 2025 G7 Leader Summit was hosted in Kananaskis, Alberta in June. While the summit was 2 days long and some delegations arriving a few days before and leaving the day after, the planning for the event and preparation took over a year, and it was quite a bit of work. The RCMP was responsible for the overall safety and security of the event. This included security of geographical location and protection of heads of delegation along with other internationally protected persons. Maybe I'll just wait for the video to catch up because it really takes away from what I'm starting to say here. Okay, no problem. So this is how fast the summit moved. Sorry. The Calgary Police Service played an integral role as a key partner to the RCMP, who was in charge of safety and security, along with other members of the Integrated Safety and Security Unit. In addition to supporting the RCMP in their legislated safety and security mandate, this Calgary Police Service, as the police's jurisdiction in Calgary, were also responsible for planning and command of all G7-related operational matters within the City of Calgary, ensuring public safety, safety of the citizens, visitors, and delegation, while minimizing disruption to the daily lives of Calgarians. In addition to that, we needed to maintain effective and efficient policing service delivery within the City of Calgary during the event. As a part of the oversight mandate, the Commission set the following priorities for the CPS: protect the safety and well-being of all in the city, deliver a safe and secure event, ensure appropriate resources to police this event and the rest of the city, and most importantly, facilitate charter rights of those wishing to protest while balancing the rights of residents, businesses, and visitors. I'm pleased to stand before you here today and say that the Calgary Police Service, with the support of our partners and the cooperation of citizens, were successful in carrying out all responsibilities and priorities. This was not a simple task. As I mentioned, it took over a year of planning and required over 1,000 law enforcement members and hundreds of supports during the event itself. We were successful due to a strong working relationship with our ISSG partners, specifically the RCMP, Alberta Sheriff's Branch, Alberta Forestry and Park, and the Canadian Armed Forces. As you can imagine, security planning for such a high-profile event of this scale and complexity requires significant costs to cover personnel, infrastructure, equipment, and interagency coordination. Funding for the summit is provided through dedicated federal funds through the Government of Canada, and the funds are administered by the Treasury Board. As with previous summits, all expenditures are subject to federal financial oversight and accountability frameworks. The final costing will be completed in coming months and reflect the actual costs of the event. As I mentioned earlier, the event was successful due to significant contributions from our partners. One of these partners is the City of Calgary, who led by Director Troy McLeod, and dozens of business units supported the safe and successful execution of the event. I'll turn it over to Director McLeod for now.
Thank you, Superintendent Brar. Good afternoon, Chair Siddiqui, the Calgary Police Commission, Chief McClellan, and the Calgary Police Service members. It is my honor to provide some comments on behalf of the City of Calgary. I would like to congratulate the Calgary Police Commission and the Calgary Police Service for your safe and effective delivery of a world-class G7 Leaders Summit right here in Calgary, Kananaskis, and the Banff region. This was Canada's 7th time of hosting the event and the 2nd time it's ever been hosted in the same location. Quite an honor. We'd also like to collectively thank the Prime Minister's Office, Global Affairs Canada, and the Summit Management Office for their confidence in our region to host the summit. This was an all-agency approach. We jointly achieved our goal of hosting a safe, secure, accessible event with Western hospitality, showcase Calgary's culture, services, and values, and promote our economic development, innovation, and investment opportunities. Because of the incredible planning that was put into this event, we were well prepared. I would like to highlight the Integrated Safety and Security Group and their flawless execution, along with a newly constructed Unified Command Center, which saw amazing coordination and management of summit security. The SIOC and sub-SIOC were all well managed and coordinated. Both air and ground transportation was very effective, even when our weather wanted to celebrate with some lightning-style fireworks and some confetti-type hail. Protest activity, especially on the Sunday, was well coordinated and continued to be effectively supported throughout our city and in Banff. Motorcades were well managed and were a highlight for many Calgarians to see along our routes in Calgary. There were aircraft, CF-18 Hornet jets, Osprey, along with Chinook and Griffin helicopters, flying in formation at low altitudes. The summit also brought incredible investment and economic vibrancy for our city and region, with an economic boost estimated to be between $190 and $240 million, with benefits to hospitality, retail, transit, and more. We are also the recipient of some legacy infrastructure as part of the summit operations in our regions that will benefit the community for many years. Smooth citywide operations impressed visitors and showcased our readiness for global opportunities. I would like to close with sharing what I saw firsthand. I've been with the City of Calgary for 30 years, and I was so thoroughly impressed with the interagency collaboration from the federal to provincial and local levels. Everyone was friendly, knowledgeable, responsive, and enthusiastic to support this event. Today, we get the benefit of looking back on the event, and honestly, I would not want to change anything, and I'm extremely grateful to have worked alongside everyone at the Calgary Police Service and other agencies. Chair Siddiqui, Calgary Police Service and Commission members, you must be incredibly proud of the work that was done by your teams. Thank you so much for the opportunity to work together and have an effective and safe 2025 G7 Leaders Summit. I'll turn it back now to Superintendent Brar.
Thank you, Troy. In closing, this final report closes out the 2025 G7 Leaders Summit. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Calgary Police Commission for their support and oversight during the year-long planning process and during the operational phase. I'd also like to thank our mutual aid partners that supported operations within the City of Calgary. This includes the RCMP, Edmonton Police Service, Alberta Sheriffs, Tsuut'ina Nation Police Service, Vancouver Police Department, and the Winnipeg Police Service. I'd especially like to thank all the members of these services and our service that put in tireless hours tireless work and countless hours to ensure safety of all. Thank you so much, and I'll open up to any questions.
Thank you, Superintendent Brar and Director McLeod. We appreciate that report. Are there questions from the Commission? Commissioner Ogle?
Thank you, Chair. Could you just provide a little more color? Like, we spent quite a bit of money here in capital assets. Just a little more color around the final accounting in the coming months. Could you put more of a pin in that, Superintendent?
I'm scheduled to speak in the later half of the meeting, so I think those questions can be answered at that time.
Any other? Councillor Wong.
Sorry about that. Superintendent and Director McLeod, just one question to both of you, and you can take your turn on it. Lessons learned. What would you say the greatest lessons learned was out of this event?
I think for me, one of the greatest lessons learned is to make sure that you do the pre-work ahead of these events. Usually events of this magnitude end in after-action reports or inquiries with recommendations. It's very important to acknowledge those and build your plan around that. And I think for us, that's what led to success. There was no blueprint in the city of Calgary for running a G7 summit. The last one was many decades ago, and there was no records retention. So one of the things that we wanted to make sure was that next time we held an event of this magnitude, that the next group that stepped up and filled these roles would have some place to start. Troy, I'll turn over to you.
Thank you. Through the chair, I think there were 3 elements that were significantly done well, and as far as lessons learned would be the planning and making sure that we have the agreement and funding in place to be able to deliver a world-class event to provide the safety and security, so that all agency approach, starting from the federal government, provincial government, and local agencies, and having that well in place and set up first so that we can have the procurement time and the things that are needed to get equipment and infrastructure in place in advance of the event itself. The second is the planning work that was done in all the different models that were used for scenarios to work through those and to not limit that. I think the tendency can be to put that aside and focus on the work at hand and not take the time to run through the various scenarios, which the Calgary Police and the emergency management agencies did a terrific job. Running through those scenarios did actually end up happening in some instances, and we were well prepared for those situations. And then lastly is engaging the community. I think you can always do more in engaging the community. I thought there were some excellent events that were held in advance of the event itself, and also communicating throughout the event. That was where we really saw an eagerness to understand what was happening, minute to minute. And the coordination of the communication was well established. So by setting up those hierarchies of communication, information was understood in real time and was able to be conveyed. And so I think that was done very effectively. But from a learning perspective, to answer back, I think broader opportunities for communities to be engaged. But I thought the Summit Management Office did a terrific job of doing that throughout, not just Calgary and Kananaskis regions, but with different community groups as well. So overall, an excellent job by all partners. Thank you.
Thank you. As a member of the commission and a member of City Council, I'm sure Councillor Winus will say the same thing. We're proud of both of you. Thank you.
I was just curious. So the next location, do they come back to you and ask you for lessons learned, or do you consult with their security for the next G7?
Yes, it'll be led through the RCMP, and we expect to be consulted. Similar to the 2018 summit, the federal government and the federal RCMP have their responsibility, municipalities have their own responsibilities. So one of the lessons learned from previous events was for municipal agencies to consult with other municipal agencies. That led us to Quebec City and then also to Montreal. And we expect that next time the event's hosted in Canada, we would be consulted by other municipalities. Currently, we are working closely with Vancouver, who is going to be hosting FIFA 2026, to share some of our lessons learned.
That's great. Thank you very much. I don't see any other questions from commission, so thank you very much for your presentation. The next presentation on our agenda is about Operation Safer Calgary. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to thank you for giving us the opportunity to present today. I'm Acting Staff Sergeant Derek Lawson of the Community Engagement Response Team, or CERT. Along with me today is Analytical Manager Tamara Daku, and we'll be presenting on Operation Certainty. Certainty was a Calgary Police Service-led operation with the public branding image of the Safer Calgary initiative. It ran from February 16th to April 13th and brought together members of the Emergency Management and Community Safety, Calgary Police Service, and Calgary Transit Public Safety, with an overall goal of addressing crime and social disorder, including the trafficking and consumption of drugs, including fentanyl, on and in around downtown and on the transit system. The members from all three agencies worked collaboratively to address individuals demonstrating unsafe behavior through enforcement, strategic patrols, compassionate supports, and community and business engagement. As mentioned, the operation ran from February 16th to April the 13th. However, we maintained operational presence throughout June in light of pending public events, including G7, the Rotary Conference, and the upcoming Calgary Stampede. Our members worked diligently over the course of several weeks to achieve the goals of the operation. Throughout the operation, our analytical group was able to capture and document the statistics along the way. So that being said, I'll turn it over to Analytical Manager Tamara Daku to talk to or speak to some of the stats.
Good afternoon. I won't go through every statistical breakdown here on the screen because that's already been spoken to previously. But I think it's important to note that one of the things that we're deploying to, we were data-led. So month over month downtown, the top calls for service continued to be unwanted guests, disturbances, and suspicious persons. Open air consumption of drugs was the reason most cited for that behavior, and requiring the removal of individuals and impacts that were impacting the perception of public safety. So a combination of undercover drug buys, proactive uniform presence were deployed as part of Operation Certainty. And you heard earlier that 66 drug possession charges were laid, along with 175 charges in undercover drug operation. It's important to know at the same time, and you'll see on the screen that there were over 2,000 business contacts, that we were proactively engaging with both the public and the business community downtown. We wanted to understand what their issues were, and we were encouraging those folks that we were interacting with to report their issues to police. We are aware that our data doesn't necessarily cover the breadth of what folks are experiencing in public spaces across Calgary and in downtown, so it was important for us to hear from the community itself. As a result, you'll note in the report that we mentioned that the proactive deployment drove increases in both public calls for service for disorder downtown. It was up by 37% during our deployment, but it also drove our proactive officer deployment up to 90% more than it was the previous year. So that may sound like a fail. From my perspective as a data geek, that was a win because we were encouraging the community to tell us what the issues were, and we were deploying to that. And so it may seem like a bad news story. It's actually a good news story. We did recognize that reporting was that challenge, as I mentioned earlier. So we were also engaging with security forces downtown. If you noticed in our report, we mentioned that over 50% of people report their issues to police, but also over 50% report to security. So from a member of the public's perspective, a person in uniform is somebody that they report to. That doesn't necessarily mean that is captured in our data. So we are sometimes working blind in that space. So we did proactively engage with security forces in downtown to get a better understanding of what they were responding to, so we could add that into our deployment plans. Maybe not. Okay. I mentioned earlier that we also engaged with the folks downtown. So as a result of that, we also issued a post-operational business feedback and perception survey. We reached out through the Calgary Downtown Association, through CMLC, and also through the Business Owners Management Group in downtown. We had that issued to over 190 of the participants in their respective communities. This is a small breadth of the report's response we were getting. Sorry, this appears to be cutting out. Over 82% reported that their perception of safety was unchanged, and 93% support increased uniform presence. Again, the topics were similar to what we were encountering earlier in our calls for service. Open air drug use, social disorder, and homelessness were cited for unchanged or worsening perceptions for public safety. The business community was reporting increased aggressivity of individuals causing disturbances, mental health crises, increased security costs, and growing volume of security-related incidents. So from comments that we received from the community, our presence was merely displacing problems without addressing root causes. We were aware of that, and we're going to talk about that as we come up in the next coming slides.
Over the course of the operation, we identified several key challenges that were presented to members across all three agencies. One key challenge was limited law enforcement authorities for the peace officers of transit and bylaw. Currently CPS is the only agency with drug authorities and the ability to transport drugs. Our partners were unable to effectively assist in matters relating to open air drug consumption. An example of this is transit public safety is limited to on-view incidents, but cannot transport or process any of the drugs that they seize. And further to this, bylaw members have zero authorities for any drug-related offenses. This was limiting for the deployment model, as our partner agencies were required to consistently wait for CPS members to attend to process anything that was drug-related. And I guess at the end of the day, it's just not an optimal use of time for any of our members or our partner agency members. We're seeking advocacy in regards to this challenge for an open air drug consumption bylaw, which in essence would be a force multiplier. This would provide peace officers the ability to enforce drug-related incidents and not require CPS assistance. This also speaks to our advocacy requesting enhanced drug authorities for transit peace officers, which would enable them to transport and process drug exhibits which they seize during their course of their duties. This would reduce duplicate efforts between transit, public safety, and CPS officers working in the exact same file. The next set of challenges on the slide were the absence of day spaces and services outside weekly business hours. This limits the ability to provide timely, compassionate supports 24/7, including the evenings and weekends. The majority of supports currently are in the downtown core. We continue to interact, and this was some of the frustrations that we saw by members, we continue to interact with the same individuals congregating in high traffic pedestrian areas, in front of businesses, restaurants, building entranceways, with no alternative places to take these individuals. We're seeking advocacy for safe day spaces outside downtown core 7 days a week beyond regular business hours. This would provide the unhoused with supports and programming to reduce the volume of individuals that are congregating in the downtown core. There's another challenge that remains, and that's obtaining government-issued IDs, which enables the unhoused to access supports and medical attention. The advocacy to address this challenge would be the expansion of the navigation center hours and the capacity to address growing identification needs. The final challenge that Safer Calgary faced is regarding social supports. These include Indigenous supports, Recovery Alberta clinicians, help team members, and transitional housing shortages. The advocacy that we are seeking is an expansion of support resources available to CPS, transit public safety officers, and bylaw members. Addiction, mental health, housing instability requires coordinated long-term solutions across multiple sectors and levels of government. Throughout Operation Safer Calgary, we were able to work collaboratively between Calgary Police Service, Transit Public Safety, and bylaw to address social disorder and create safe public spaces. As a service, we remain committed to addressing issues facing the residents and business community throughout the city. Respecting all your time, I do open the floor for questions at this time.
Thank you very much, Acting Staff Sergeant and Ms. Daiku. Commissioners, questions or comments? Commissioner Mallon?
Thank you. Clearly from your report, like there was a lot of resources put into CERT, right? I was on a walk along, I guess you would call it, and in a very short space on 8th Avenue, a lot of officers were there, and yet the people we hoped to make happy aren't, right? And it comes back to where do you put the people, as you were talking about. And I wonder, you were talking about safe spaces outside the downtown. I'm told that the shelters that we have are underutilized because people don't like going there. So is there ever any conversation about revamping how the shelters operate and making them more, perhaps these safe places, and changing the model completely? Because the unhoused don't want to go there for safety reasons. And I'm just trying to think of how we can better use the resources already available, like the navigation center and the shelter. So has any thought gone into advocacy in that regard?
You are correct. Our members were hearing that as well from vulnerable and unhoused, that they just didn't feel comfortable in some of the shelters. And that's the reason why we're seeing displacement in some of the encampments that are set up. There has been some advocacy pieces regarding, like I mentioned, regarding of expanding the navigation center, a valuable resource just for capacity, for those IDs, everything else. And from my understanding, there is some discussion that is happening around, just different day spaces, working along with the shelters that we already have, just to provide areas for those people to go during the day.
Yeah, I think I would just add to that a little bit. Though we're interacting directly with a number of the population who are either in the shelter system or seeking supports, regardless of whether we're able to connect with them, some of them will still feel that this is not the right location for them. Their preference is to be away from the downtown core. So we are working closely with our support partners downtown to do what we can collaboratively together to address that problem, to address that perception. And the perception is not just within our community, but also within that homeless community. But the fact remains, when all those supports are centralized in one location, it means that this is where folks are going to be. So what we're being asked from the public and the community is to remove individuals, but we're also serving them in the same location that we're being asked to remove them from. So that prevents a complex challenge. And so one of the reasons I think there's some worthiness in considering moving is just moving those supports to other locations, as the folks do not want to attend here, regardless of the conversations we're having.
Would that run the risk of just having a new community that is concerned about people being at their businesses or whatever? Like, I mean, regardless, it's just a problem that we need a new solution for, because nobody in the city wants people who are unhoused lying on the ground in front of their businesses, right? I mean, they want them to be somewhere else. We want them to be in a place that's safe and perhaps therapeutic for them. So I'm just trying to think. We create spaces outside the downtown, and then the Beltline and Glenmore and wherever else they are going to be new locations, right, of concern.
So in short, the answer is yes and no. Wherever we have a group of folks gathering, regardless of what sector of society they belong in, it's going to create a disorder hotspot of some sort. And for some people, that will be an acceptable spot, and for some it won't. I don't know if we'll ever truly be able to serve everybody's expectations in that space. However, we are running a couple pilot locations elsewhere in the city in partnership with city partners and social support partners, and they are going quite well. So it's important to give folks access to the services they need to be able to navigate that system. I think the other challenge is we need to be able to provide programming within locations that we do have. so that folks have a place to go throughout the day. There is no other alternative other than coffee shops and restaurants and parks and public spaces, which is where we have that competing expectation from both populations.
Thank you.
Commissioner Wong.
Thank you. On the slides, we talked about statistics. The statistics you showed, if I could say, the metrics for that time period of January through to whatever, right? But it didn't show you what it was from the previous years or anything. Is there an indication of what the actual decreases were in previous years?
Can you give me a specific example, which one you're referring to?
I believe it's on your second slide there. We had different statistics.
So were you referring to the charges or disorder or
Each
any
and
of
every
them?
one, each and every one, because ultimately all that number showed was a number for that period. It didn't show a baseline of where it came from or where we.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So disorder was an increase in comparison to last year, but it was self-generated. We were the reason for that increase in disorder. I'll actually add to that, though. We've had an increase in population in Calgary at the same time. So it's difficult for us to definitively measure that. We can say how many calls for service that we responded to that fit within that category. And the answer is it went up. But we were encouraging folks to report to us at that same time. So it's kind of a false inflation there. From the perspective of overall crime from across the city, it's gone down. I think there's a pending presentation that's coming up after me, so I don't want to steal the thunder. I would say that downtown is a unique microcosm in that. It's a unique situation here. I would say in some categories, the volume has gone up, and it's specifically where we were deploying to during Operation Certainty.
Okay. My only comment again is you talk about a data geek. I like to see where, what the baseline number is and the change number is, as opposed to just a static number there.
We could absolutely provide that as a follow-up. It wasn't captured in this particular report.
Okay. The second is you made reference to the different groups you spoke to: BOMA, Downtown Association, CMLC, Chinatown is part of downtown. Did you get a chance to speak to Chinatown Business Group?
We didn't personally, but I understand some of the business associations did reach out to them, but I can't confirm that.
Okay. The last comment is with regards to the day space relocations and that. There's been a lot of chatter, definitely within inner city communities, of displacing them from downtown core to Beltline or downtown into Kensington or whatever case may be. There's pushback, and so just to go along with Commissioner Mellon, I think that's something we really be careful about. Thank you.
Commissioner Wyness.
Thanks. In the report, you talk about your 66 charges, but when you look at the breakdown, you had 3 guilty pleas, 8 stays, 26 withdrawn by the Crown, and 29 are active. So when I look at the Crown dropping 26, like how is that sort of a metric of success on this?
I was anticipating that question.
Good.
Okay, so the answer is it's a bit complex. We're dealing with 2 different Crown prosecutorial groups. When we are dealing with standalone drug possession charges, we're dealing with the federal Crown. And when we're dealing with the provincial Crown, with the ones that were laid in addition to the multi-charges. So I just want to provide a little bit of background to that. Is when we are laying a charge, sometimes we're laying multiple charges at the same time. So it could be for possession of a drug, but it could also be a weapons involved offense at the same time. So in some cases, a charge may be dropped, but another charge may move forward. So in the cases in the ones where we had multiple charges laid on an individual, in several of those cases, the drug-related charge was dropped, but the weapons charge or other multi-charge went forward.
Okay. I know you can't speak for the Crown, but when you look at both the movement in Canada, like Alberta, where you got to go sort of into jail to get to recovery, BC is doing the same thing. doesn't dropping the drug charges stop highlighting who needs to go into the treatment place? And maybe Rob will have to pick this one up after, but I'm just like as a counselor, we're kind of put in this where we're supposed to keep injecting money, and I see results like this, and I see blank checks aren't going to solve this problem. So how are we making sure the process is actually solving the problem Calgarians and Canadians are asking?
Councillor, if I could, so we've had lots of conversations, and I know I've had conversations about this. So we often hear the public say, well, the police just walked by and didn't do anything. The reality is that to put together a charge package for a simple drug possession is probably 3 hours that we have those officers off the street.
Yeah.
So they're going to put together that. The officers have figured out very quickly, because we hear from some of our partners in the Crown's office that for a simple possession charge, they're not going to pursue that. Capacity or whatever, they're not going to pursue that. So this is why we've been talking for quite a while now about a bylaw solution and seeing if that might be a way forward. There's certainly some things that have to be worked through, but we know that other jurisdictions have done that, and it allows us to actually do something. You are 100% correct when it comes to how do we get people help. We need to get them into the system to get help, but right now we're not doing that. Even after we've talked to our partners and said, here's why we think it's very important in this operation for this period of time that when we have possession charges that that they're prosecuted, or they're at least there's a diversion or whatnot, and that hasn't happened. So we're telling you the ugly truth, which is this is where we're at right now. We, as have Edmonton and other centers, look for solutions, and one of their solutions they've come up with is a bylaw. So that's what we've been advocating for.
Well, I'll get
Commissioner Wineson, I think the chief would like to answer that as well.
Thanks, Deputy. I'll just add to that. So some of you might have recalled, you might have seen the letter that after this program, this initiative happened, that I actually sent a letter off to the Crown's office with some concerns and some questions. But we also said, as the deputy said, it's complex. And so we've also asked, what could we do differently? What could we do better? There's a conversation about the bylaw, and there is an upcoming meeting with the Crowns with Deputy O'Brien and I about this, and we will be sure to report back on that. So there has been some follow-up, there has been some engagement, and it is a two-way street. So
yeah, I guess I'm pushing back to, I get the bylaw, and I've thought that through as well, and I'll get to the bylaw part in a second. We have higher orders of government who write laws, and we're continuing to download onto municipal governments to have to write bylaws to fix things when there's existing laws above us. And so for every time the Crown does this, it skews the database decision-making elected officials get to make. It screws up budgets. It screws up us actually solving the problem and putting this back onto healthcare and the federal and the province. So I get we're trying to solve a problem here. But when the data keeps coming out like this, or people don't take the 3 hours to file the report so that I, as a municipal government, can go and say, hey guys, above me, you're screwing up. We can't do our job right. And you guys are getting, you're just chasing your tails, and it's demoralizing for the frontline officers and constituents. So now I'm going to stop that one and go over to peace officers. So while we're talking with bylaw and peace officers, I know that we just had a vote at council for community court. Again, now municipal government is going to tax your houses to fund another court. Yes, it's a good court system, but again, it's not what the tax model at municipal is supposed to be doing. So there'll be a massive political debate on that one. But we're starting to see our peace officers getting attacked and injured. And now we're adding a bylaw that's going to put them at more risk. And does that mean, will you expect bylaw to have more training? What would your recommendation be while we're brainstorming this idea?
I wouldn't want to speak for bylaw. I think, there would have to be more training for sure. But I'd also, no different than the weapons amendments that we have. But I would, we'd also lean on what Edmonton and other cities have done and seeing whether it's working or not. I know city administration was going to look at those kinds of things. So I agree. And I'll just say the obvious, which I know everybody here knows, but some of this is not a police issue, but we're the ones that go because it's easy to get a hold of us. And I don't mean that in a flippant way. We want to go and we want to help. Our officers do want to go help. And you're absolutely right. It is demoralizing when we have dozens of officers that go down, do a really good job, lay the charges, and they're withdrawn. That's the reality we've been facing for many, many years. So I agree with you.
Yeah, I hope you bring that back when you meet with the Crown. Thank you.
Commissioner Nyson-Jordan.
Thanks. This is more of a comment than a question. I am very happy that you actually did this project because it does highlight the fact that our officers are doing what they can in that situation. I find it interesting that, we saw an increase in 33% from the baseline, and you did mention the increase 33%. So if we were to put in that time period, at some point, it might be useful to hand off to the Finance Committee the actual cost of this project and the results of it, and were there any benefits? Like when I see 92% saw more police, but they didn't feel any safer, the amount of cost for that project was probably, I know it's not wasted, but it is beneficial to show what you guys are doing, but I think we can use our resources in a lot better ways. So we need to pinpoint those particular things. Thanks. I don't need any response.
Commissioner Hanson.
I don't know if this is a question or if it's just observation, but has there been any collaboration between, you talk about the shelters and about people not wanting to go there, and we know that. People don't want to go because they're not safe. People don't want to go to the drop-in center because it's not safe. I mean, ironically, I was on a drive along and we walk in, they're telling the people outside to put the drugs away because the officers are here. And I'm just kind of going like, shouldn't that go back onto the people that are running the shelters and making sure that there is no drug use online? You can't come here if you're using, like, isn't there something? Because I hear from people that I know that work at the DI that said they have people that say, I'm not coming there because I don't feel safe. And they're not using drugs. They're needing it for a shelter. And so I'm just kind of saying, how do we bring these people to the table with police to say, you know what, how are you changing how you are running your business? Because this is about people's health. And I know some of this stuff isn't a police issue. It's I don't know. That's my rant.
You're not wrong.
So I just want to thank you again. I also do want to mention that I think a few of my colleagues and I went on a walk along or ride along. I went out with Sergeant Aaron and his team from District 8. And I think one of the things that I really saw was just the respectful interaction that they had with people on the streets and how they knew their names, because many of them they had dealt with them the night before or a couple of nights before. And so to go out and do that on a regular basis and deal with the same issues over and over, I have a lot of respect for that. So I just wanted to mention that as well. And thank you for taking us out so that we could see firsthand. So thank you very much for your presentation. The next presentation is Crime Analysis and CSI. That sounds like really hot, eh?
I'm just going to turn this right over to Rebecca Davidson, our manager of corporate data and analytics, and then I'll just make a few comments at the end. Thank you. Thank you.
Statistics Canada releases an annual report every summer that provides an overview of all police-reported crime from the previous year. From the data, they create an index score known as a Crime Severity Index. This score is eagerly anticipated by police agencies across Canada. What is the CSI? Well, the name or concept is very descriptive, as it is a statistical measure that considers both the volume and severity of crime. It is based only on reported violent and non-violent crimes, and it applies a weighting based on sentencing. The more severe the crime, the longer the prison sentence. For example, homicides carry a weight of 8,200 compared to theft with a weight of 29. The CSI normalizes the data to account for population increases, and it allows police agencies to compare year over year and with other jurisdictions. As by law, all police agencies are required to submit their crime data to Statistics Canada in a consistent format to support this type of measure and reporting. The CSI is just one measure of many that provides insight and understanding of crime landscape and should not be looked at in isolation. The CSI does not necessarily reflect perceptions of safety. Intuitively, one would assume that as the CSI decreases, perceptions of safety should increase. However, this is not what we are seeing. We see that the CSI decreases that we've experienced, but the perception of safety has not increased. We know that the drivers of feeling safe are different than those that actually drive crime. Some key findings. The national CSI has been dropping for about 4 years and sits at 77.9. Calgary CSI has been declining since 2022 and sits at 63.3. These decreases have been driven by persistent drops in property crime, and it's been steadily decreasing since COVID. 2024 also had fewer homicides, hence our lower rate, or our index. Calgary is also experiencing similar crime trends to those of the rest of the country, with decreases in break and enter and motor vehicle thefts. However, we are seeing significant increases in shoplifting, particularly organized retail thefts, and is the primary driver of some of these numbers. And addressing this type of priority is a priority for across the country. I will speak to some of these other key messages later in the presentation. This jurisdictional comparison, we can see there's considerable variation across CSI at the jurisdictional level. We know that there are different kinds of crime issues across the country that often shape their context and an operational response. For example, Ottawa shared with us that when they increased their online reporting options to include more property crime types, they experienced a significant increase in their property crime reports. The bottom graph is specific to Calgary and shows the 10-year trending for CSI. 2019 jumps out. That year, we experienced a significant jump in property crime, including vehicle thefts, break and enters, and increases in violence. These issues corresponded to the influx of methamphetamine and fentanyl in Calgary. Selected weighted clearance rates. This slide shows clearance rates comparisons, and like the CSI, they are weighted based on the type and severity of the crime. Violence typically has a higher clearance rate because of the nature of the crime. For example, there's typically a face-to-face type of interaction where victims will either know or at least get a description of the offender or offenders. There is also more likely to be evidence, which will lead to investigative avenues for detectives. In contrast, property crime is a crime of opportunity, where offenders will seek out opportunities that reduce the likelihood that they will come into contact with a victim. That is, they will look for houses where no one is home, they'll prowl vehicles at night, so there's less investigative avenues to pursue, therefore our clearance rate is typically lower. This slide looks at youth. Must bring to attention that the CSI is actually for Alberta. There are too few data points to be able to calculate a youth CSI for each jurisdiction. But you can see here Alberta trends very well in terms of we are the third lowest for both overall crime severity and for violence. The bottom graph shows a picture of the number of incidents involving youths as offenders and victims in Calgary. This is a volume count. The graph shows a sharp decline during the COVID years, and an upward trend speaks to the type of incidents that we are seeing in Calgary right now, where youth often target one another for their backpacks, high-end clothing, runners, money, etc. We always see an increase in youth-related incidents when they return back to school. CPS has many crime prevention, education, and awareness programs related to youth, as the chief had mentioned earlier, as well as youth diversion. Crime and victim trends are analyzed to ensure that the programs are reflective of what we are seeing on the ground and in the data. I will open it up now for questions. Oh, I will open it up actually to CSO Murphy.
No, thank you. Thank you very much, Rebecca. I just wanted to comment that this is a really good result for Calgary. We talk a lot about perception of safety, and I'll touch on that. But in terms of crime stats, this is a really good result for Calgary, and I don't think you see that relative to other jurisdictions without a competent and effective police service. This is what we do. This is our core business in terms of clearance rates and addressing crime. Particularly with resource constraints, to be able to maintain and continue to lower the CSI in this city is a really good thing, and reflects positively on CPS. It does not, though, reflect the perception of safety, and it does not account for underreporting. And if something is not reported, it's not included in the CSI. And we see that, and we know that's true, particularly as it relates to social disorder. People are more inclined to report a violent crime than they are to report, open air drug use that's making them uncomfortable because they feel that maybe nothing will be done about it. So it doesn't tell us the whole story, and we know what makes people feel safe is not easily budged. We just talked about Operation Certainty, and it doesn't mean that what we were doing wasn't effective, but in order to change people's perceptions, you need sustained intervention and a sustained priority. And I think that's kind of where we're focusing on our longer term planning. And okay, how do we make sustained investment in police focused interventions that will see a change in perception over time? But it's most definitely not something that you're going to see after a couple of months. And it's just a sticky thing and a difficult thing to deal with. But overall, a very good news story for CPS, and something we take quite seriously. So back to you, Rebecca.
Thank you. I will open it up for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Davidson. Start with Commissioner Cornett and then Commissioner Hope.
I'm not sure there's an answer to this, and I don't know where it goes, but to follow along on that comment, the issue of perception of safety and how sticky it is, what those drivers are. I wonder if that's something over the next while it's worth trying to articulate and pull forward somehow, because I think new council, new all sorts of things, new budget, all those sorts of things coming on, when we do and spend the money on things that still have our engagement scores showing perception of safety is still not very good.
Yeah.
We need that information to be able to say, yes, but that's what this is like. What is it about? So anyhow, I don't know there's an answer to that.
I would maybe
right
just
now,
comment, Commissioner, that I think, perception of safety is a police issue. People have a right to be safe, and they have a right to feel safe. I think what we learned a lot from the Commission's public survey on community perception about what makes people feel unsafe. And it's not so much that they're seeing a crime in progress, but they're seeing risky behavior that could result in a crime or in something that physically harms them. And we are listening to the community tell us that they want more visible police because it reduces the fear of that risk. That's my best explanation, and we are looking into it more clearly. So it's not necessarily a crime, but it's a risk of one, and that's why visible policing and presence helps in a sustained way, because perception is formed on one interaction. So if you have one bad experience, it can take 20 good experiences to change your perception and make you feel safe again. And that's just psychology. That's the way we all work as it relates to our sense of safety. But 100% as we look forward, we do need to articulate it, and we do need to have a strategy for perception just as much as we have a strategy for investigating and responding to crime.
And I think that message needs to go along with things like the advocacy around bylaws. Like the why for the bylaws is very specific and very concrete, but it needs to be spoken about so that the people who can make those changes are a little bit more aware. So anyhow.
And I'll just add the research around perception of safety, sorry, Mike, is very much driven by the media and experience. And so those are very different drivers than what we would see in terms of what causes or leads to crime. So social media, all those things that we have a hard time controlling.
And so while perception is definitely part of CPS's responsibility, the media is not. And so like making those arguments very distinct and very clear, I think is important.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Ms. Davidson. And I apologize because Commissioner Cornett read my notes and stole my question. That's okay. That's okay. I forgive you. But just along those same lines is, again, we focus on CSO talked about perception of safety. Is there opportunity to go in a new direction, which is to re-educate our communities and increase their risk appetite and their tolerance for the things we're seeing? Because we're trying to maybe keep a 1950s stance on what is acceptable in the public world, and it appears that we're failing to be able to do that. And instead of maybe spending as much money, and it sounds strange from a member of a commission to be talking about going in a wrong direction, but it may be more about educations about what is acceptable, to your point. They're fearing the unknown, they're fearing what could potentially could be. Maybe we would see more uptake rather than trying to address the perception, which seems to be a moving sort of a dart, if I may say.
I mean, I think that we actually need to validate people's perceptions as real. I think that trying to fight perception with crime stats doesn't work because they're two different things, and actually can be a bit patronizing to people who have a bad experience with a perception of safety. It's like the law; it evolves over time based on people's value judgments about what is acceptable or how we should deal with it. And when I say it's a police issue only to the extent that we're involved in terms of preventing crime, education, and enforcing the law. So while we want to be involved, we want to help the community, we want to increase perceptions of safety, it's really important that we keep in mind while doing that our mandate and stay squarely within our lane and use our resources within our lane so that when we're acting as part of a holistic response to social disorder, we're doing it with a very clear understanding of why we're there and what value it's bringing to a public safety mandate. We need to lean on our partners to also take some of that load in terms of educating around, mental health crisis, addictions crisis. We can't carry that all as a police service.
Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Wong.
Thank you, and thank you for the report. In your very first slide, it says this data is normalized to account for population. Can you just explain how you do that? And the reason I get that is that you can turn around and count your CSI number, but we are a population that's grown by 220,000 population over 4 years. And where I'm going to drive to the second question, which I'll give to you right now, is as council moves forward and addresses budget in 2026, 2027, there's people saying we need 500 more police officers. And if the crime stats, CSI numbers go down, population's going up, I guess I'm trying to find the rationalization of the population increase, the CSI number, budget.
So I have to admit, we don't actually calculate the CSI. Statistics Canada does. And so they have a formula where they take the populations and they're able to work their magic and produce the numbers. So I don't know quite what goes into the calculation, but I do know that it does normalize for population because there's tremendous growth across the country and they want to make it comparable. In terms of, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to add, Councillor, that I think in terms of the budget connection, while it normalizes for population, it's not normalizing for the size of our police service relative to that population. So we're doing more with a larger population. So the crime rate's normalized to the population, but the size of the police service, which is dealing with the crime underlying that CSI, is not taken into account in that calculation, if that makes sense.
So I'm going to say the messaging going forward from this point onwards to the public as we get in November and then 2077, it's got to be very careful because, again, the public will see this number as low relative to other major cities.
Correct.
Therefore, needs
Yeah.
your ongoing. Thank you.
Yeah, and we're I kudos to the police service and to the CPS members. We're doing our job with a lot less and doing it effectively. You can only sustain that for so long. And so that's kind of what we're seeing a little bit here. But point well taken. Yeah.
And sorry, spoiler alert, violence is going up this year. I don't know if we'll see similar numbers. And officers are responding to more than just crime. It's the call volume that we're actually going to see huge increases with the population increasing. And it's certain types of crime that we will see that will be impacted by population growth, particularly around domestics and probably youth-related crime, et cetera. So it really does depend of the age of the individuals coming in, where they're settling, et cetera. But we can see that call demand absolutely increasing.
Thank you. I'll repeat a little bit here, but I think that, you know, I wish Dr. Tanguay was here, that he and I debate this numbers versus those that don't report. But that's got to be the same stat across the country too, like, you know, because it's normalized by the data. So, you know, you are doing more with less. I think what's important that I want to put on the public record is the public knows that as we go forward to 27 through 30, that we need more resources to do more with less, or we're going to continue to do less with less. So, or I'm sorry, we'll do less with less. So, you know, I want to reiterate to the ELT and to the commission, as we build out this 4-year plan, this is what we can do if we were to increase our torque. So just that it's on the record that you're doing really well, and we'll try to help you do better than that.
But I think we have to look to places like Ottawa that have a robust online reporting system. When you make it easy for people to report, they will report. And so we will expect increases in reported crime when we move to those new systems.
More is more, though. That's better, though. I think, again, it's in the communication of that, as we just heard. Like, we have to make sure that, as Terry just said, that the population knows what we're, because you can get caught in the data, you know, and just, you know, it's like flying an airplane. If you continue, if it's cloudy and if you're in instrument flight rules and you stick on one instrument, you're going in. You have to keep circling. So I think it's important that all of the parameters that put the data together, then get the message to that is easy to quantify, qualify, and the person that's reading it can understand it.
And I think too, Chair, if you don't mind, I'll just add that, so this is about the crime stats and of course the calls that are reported. But of course, as we all know, police officers just don't go to calls. So there's all the prevention work that we talk about, all the youth programs, the education, the 4 pillars where we talk about investigation, all the intelligence that is done to prevent guns, to prevent shootings, the traffic enforcement that is done. So I think that's what some people say, and they go, oh, the calls are going down. Why do we need more police officers? Well, there's a lot more to just attending to calls. And so there's all those other 4 pillars that we always talk about and have our members focus on. So just wanted to add that piece as well.
Well, and I think, Chief, that will be part of the ask as well, to make sure that that's very clear, all the other things that the service is doing at the same time. Commissioner Wyness.
Thanks. I kind of want to jump back into the perception of safety and citizens. And so while we're sitting here talking about violent crime, where their trust is being eroded and their perception is going down is when like school zones right now. Yes, we send traffic enforcement, but they're going in undercover cars. They're not going in with a badged vehicle. And I've been on site when I've noticed an undercover traffic because I know the red vest. And I'm like, oh, by the way, there's your traffic enforcement. But to the citizen, no one's responding to their community when school drop off and pickup is happening because their driveways are being blocked and they're not making it to an appointment. To the citizen, it's the police aren't enforcing the little rules that chip away at their trust in the institution or the laws of Canada. Or when we have a bunch of young kids go through and smash all their bus stops and they go, oh, I feel unsafe in my community because all this little petty crime happened and no one came. When I talk to the officer, there's no one's willing to put up like a security camera when a bunch of these people have doorbell cam footages. This is the comms that are coming to the citizens that's eroding it. So while we sit here and are discussing all the big news stuff, it's the little things citizens are asking. And it can be as simple as doing little drive-throughs the community around school time in a marked police vehicle. That will make the shift in some of our perception. So I just save you guys a consult fee because I've been talking to so many people in my community. Yeah, I think it's just, let's start focusing on the broken window theory and start fixing that. And I think you'll see everything else follow for citizens. That's my rant for today.
And maybe just a comment on that. I 100% agree. And I think Calgarians are very reasonable, and we saw that in the survey as well. They want us to focus on guns and gangs and violent crime, and that's where we prioritize that as the police. But in terms of sustained investment in addressing perception and the little things, that's where we are under-resourced to do that work. And that's the conversation as we go into the 4-year plan to say if we want to move the needle on perception from a police perspective, then that takes sustained availability for proactive policing and visible policing.
Any other questions? Great. Thank you so much for that. We'll now hear updates on local crime trends from the Bureaus of Investigative Support and Community Policing. Commissioners will get to ask questions once both reports are presented.
Deputy Rashid will go first.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, Commission. Apologies for the hoarse voice. Fortunately for you, I'll keep my comments brief because you have the report before you, and I'll keep them to 5 minutes or less. So as you read in our report, earlier this summer, we became aware of a number of extortion and threats complaints targeting the South Asian community. I'm pleased to advise that we've stood up a major operation at the Calgary Police Service dubbed Operation Ripple. The team of investigators is actively investigating 5 incidents in Calgary that are believed to be connected to this series. All of these incidents involve violence or threats of violence, as well as a demand for money. This is a worrying crime trend that cities across the country are also dealing with. And so because we have a strong relationship with many of these law enforcement partners, we have been connecting with them to share intelligence information and explore possible connections between the incidents. And we're making good progress on those files. Looking at working with the RCMP and the Edmonton Police Service as these complaints continue to come in standing up a joint forces operation. So I'll be happy to provide you updates as and when that comes to fruition. Last week, as I said, our Operation Ripple investigators traveled to Edmonton to align our investigative strategies and to glean intelligence from some of the incidents that have happened up there. While we know, again, that we've only had 5 confirmed incidents and, collateral to the previous conversation, we know that this trend is causing an immense concern for our South Asian community and that underreporting continues to be something that we're focusing on. So to that end, back in August, we collaborated with Deputy Daly's diversity resource team and held a community town hall that was attended by over 100 community members. And the idea was to dismantle some of the barriers and create a more inclusive venue for which South Asian members of the community could report crimes or concerns that they had. We continue to work with the community and support victims and complainants and encourage those in the community to report such incidents to police. We've created a dedicated email address that has been publicized to our public affairs team so that our Operation Ripple investigators can be contacted directly as opposed to causing barriers for our citizens to report. We've recently created an investigative guide that's been uploaded to our officer toolkit, which actually has some inclusive and culturally competent ways that frontline investigators can conduct interviews in the field to enhance the investigative process and make sure that we're being as thorough in our work as possible. Last week, and thank you, Chair and Commission members, for supporting the Homicide Conference, our major crime section hosted in Calgary last week. This conference is an annual conference that takes place across Alberta, and we had over 200 investigators attend, including speakers both nationally and internationally as well. We focused on some new policing trends happening in our bureau and across the country, specifically investigative genetic genealogy, which was of great interest to those that attended. Also, earlier this month, our Firearms Investigative Unit hosted an important training day for justice professionals who attended our West Winds campus, approximately 24 in total, including many judges who preside over many of the cases that come before them regarding firearm use and trafficking. Given the complexities in firearms legislation and regulations, we felt it was important to collaborate with the justice community so that they and we can be better informed on how we investigate and the crimes are prosecuted in court. It was the first time that we've hosted a conference or session like this, and we intend on replicating the same next year. So as far as some of the priorities, I know we just heard about the crime severity index for stats that aren't available on the dashboard. I'd like to highlight shootings. We know that we've had a number of very high profile and very concerning shootings in the community as of late. Disappointed to report that 41 shootings in Calgary so far this year. That does compare to 59 for this time last year. So while it's a 31% decrease, our view is that one shooting is one shooting too many, and we'll continue to focus on that. Many of the shootings, as you've heard through the media accounts, are targeted, but we know that public safety is always compromised when these shootings take place in a public venue. Several of these shootings are connected to Operation Ripple, and as I said before, we're examining the forensic evidence from those shootings and comparing them to other incidents across the country so we can identify suspects involved. We have dedicated a significant amount of resources through Operation Ripple and the Organized Crime and Offender Management section to gather intelligence around gun and gang crimes. And we're thankful to the provincial government for funding the Guns and Gangs Violence Action Fund to enhance our analytical and data acumen in the organization around gun and gang crime. As far as homicides, we are at 12 homicides for this year, which is on par with this time last year, but we continue to dedicate resources on some of our cold case files as well that are outstanding from 2024. The chief mentioned it, and I know Rebecca mentioned it at the beginning of this conversation, that while the CSI indices suggest a decrease of youth crime by about 9%, we don't need to wait until 2026 results in CSI indexes to be revealed to confirm that youth crime is actually on the increase in Calgary, particularly around violence, assaults, and robberies. And so our Bureau continues to monitor that since the beginning of this year. Our inferences are based on some of the publicly available data, which suggests that youth unemployment is the highest that it's ever been. Our demographics in the community continue to change and grow, and with that brings some complexities around what we can expect with youth crime. So we'll continue to monitor these trends and continue to work with Deputy O'Brien and Deputy Daly to look at those intervention and prevention programs, as well as harness some of the resources that we have in our other bureaus to look at revising our offender management strategies. We're fortunate that we have a lot of tools in our toolkit to leverage from years gone by around youth crime specifically. As was referenced earlier, we're working on a youth engagement strategy, potential partnerships with community corrections on the youth side, and then leveraging data through the University of Calgary and research to inform how we move forward with tackling this very complex issue. So I'm hopeful that we'll be able to provide you updates in the future about how our youth engagement strategy continues, but those are my updates for now. Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, Deputy O'Brien.
Thanks. You have my report. The one thing I would highlight from my report is Operation Bolt. And if you remember, in June of this year, we had a series of nighttime break and enters. And so we stood up a task force and we ended up charging 17 individuals with about 107 criminal code offenses. Here we are in September. 12 of those 17 individuals have been released, 8 with conditions, and we just arrested another one for a similar offense. So I just wanted to highlight that. And then, as you've already heard, traffic has been high on our list of priorities over the past few months. As you know, we're nearing an all-time high in fatal collisions. We currently are sitting at 27 fatal collisions, including one with a motorcycle last week. Of the 27, 6 have involved motorcycles, which now puts us at the highest number of motorcycle collisions since 2013. In 2024, which is not a good record, but we topped out at 29 fatalities. We're at 27 right now. So clearly we're on track to meet or surpass that, which is unacceptable. As you've seen in the news, as you've heard from the chief, we can report and have reported that we now have 3 automated traffic enforcement locations that have been reactivated or will be reactivated following the approval business case process with the government of Alberta, and more are in the works. Also, as you've heard earlier this week, we also launched the traffic safety campaign, the Drive to Zero. This campaign was developed in partnership with the City of Calgary as part of the Safer Mobility Plan. And as the chief mentioned, it is a 3-part video series that has been rolled out and will be rolled out over the next year. And it does share an impactful story of really preventable tragedy from several different perspectives, showing the ripple effect of a single traffic incident fatality. Our goal is that this ad series will make people reflect about their driving behavior, slow down and be more aware, and ultimately reduce the number of traffic fatalities. I encourage everybody to watch it. It's on calgary.co/vision0, and I hope that people will see it. August and September have been very busy for our members with several high-profile critical incidents. And what I would like to do, I know you know some of this, but what I would like to do, if I could, is just take a minute to talk to you about one of those incidents, and that's the Rosedale Community Active Shooter incident on Crescent Heights Road. I think it demonstrates how the service, both people you see and people you don't see, come together to make this a safer Calgary. So the incident began on August 28th when we were trying to apprehend an individual, a man wanted on a Canada-wide warrant for being unlawfully at large after he removed his court-ordered electronic monitoring device. Due to his history of violence, multiple police resources had been attempting to safely arrest him, including covert resources. At 3:40 that day, he left his vehicle and attempted to break into a home on Crescent Heights Road by firing several shots from a rifle into the home. When that didn't work, he and his female companion broke into a nearby residence. The tactical unit arrived and the suspect fired several shots at the officers, striking the armored rescue vehicle that they were in. A shelter-in-place order was issued for nearby residents. Now, all of that's publicly visible. That was covered very thoroughly in the news. But what you might not have seen or heard about were the patrol officers that quickly responded to that neighborhood, not only to keep residents out of the neighborhood while we have an active shooter, but also to evacuate the 100 or so students that were at a nearby school outside a nearby school. You may not know, or not everybody would know, that because we had both of our armored rescue vehicles engaged in that incident, we needed additional assistance. We called our RCMP brothers and sisters, and their emergency response team came with their vehicle to assist us. Air support was involved not only with Hawks, but also with the drones or with our RPAS, which brought in critical intel information to our command team. One of the things in the service that I think sometimes people don't realize is how we got the armored rescue vehicle in the first place. And quite frankly, it was a team of lawyers. It was business strategists. It was people from our finance department. It was electricians. It was mechanics that work all behind the scenes to get that equipment and get it equipped for us, which ultimately saved those officers' lives. Our communications staff that deployed with our incident management teams and deployed to the real-time operations center to communicate to the public. The staff in our real-time operations center who had command and control, not just of this incident, but also for the rest of the city and everything that was going on in the rest of the city. On the next day, we also had our forensic crime scenes unit that went out to do the work that not everybody would know about. We also, on the next day, our SROs went to the nearby schools to offer support. Our victim assistance support team went out to the community along with the community resource officers and offered support to the community. We had our non-sworn members in behind the scenes that were processing the reports for the charges that were laid for one of the individuals that was there. I would say that, critical incidents, and sometimes we forget this, but critical incidents are really an iceberg. And so what you might see and the danger, the actual incident, is really just the top of the iceberg and how it's managed. And you can see that, but there's a whole base underneath that supports the successful resolution of these incidents. And we're super grateful for that. And then just real quickly, every day, and I know you know this because you care and you're out there and you pay attention and you connect with our members, but every day our members are making a difference. And I just want to tell you about 3 quick calls in the last few days. I listened to our members respond to an ongoing domestic incident just a few days ago where our member saved a 25-minute-old baby. 25-minute-old baby. Those are our patrol officers. In arrest processing, our police officers, along with their medics and our commissioners, saved a detainee's life who had ingested drugs just before being arrested, and while being processed, collapsed and had to be brought back to life. We just had the opportunity to watch a video of our officers running towards a subject with a gun who had threatened people with a gun and had assaulted people, and in a public space, and rightfully so, as people are running away, as they should. Our officers were running there very courageously and taking them into custody. So that's just in a few days, just amazing work. So not all of these things make the news. I know you know that, but we're very, very proud of them nonetheless. So thanks.
Thank you, Deputy Chief O'Brien, for sharing those with us, because you're right, we don't get to hear all of the stories. And thank you, Deputy Chief Rashid, for your report. Are there questions? Commissioner Nyson-Jordan.
Thanks. Yeah, we do occasionally get to do some of the ride-alongs and get to see some amazing responsible, respective behavior. And so I do want to highlight that. My question relates to perhaps not in our jurisdiction, but perhaps you can comment, and that is the continuing issues around traffic on Stoney and Deerfoot and our relationship with the provincial sheriffs and how we're doing there, because I think a significant number of those fatal collisions occurred in that particular area, and I have a significant concern that we're not getting through to our provincial colleagues about the importance of the traffic on those areas.
Yeah, thanks for the question. You'll see in the report too that District 8, so our district down south, did do an operation with the RCMP and the sheriffs, and specifically went out to target those areas, the high speed, the Stoney Trail, the Deerfoot. That was very successful. We're looking to continue to do those kinds of things. We do regularly talk to the sheriffs for sure. I would say when it comes to the business cases, which, as you know, are quite onerous to put together, but we have not had one denied yet. It just takes a little while to get all of the data that we need put together. So those 3 intersections that we've have approval to put back on the speed on green. When the approval came, we need to do public education for 4 weeks before we can turn them back on. So we're in that process. We have another 2 weeks or so to go, and then they'll be turned back on. So we are making headway. I would suggest when we look at the fatals, we have not fast enough, and I know you agree with that, but we're complying and we're doing the best we can.
Thanks, Deputy O'Brien. Further to that, can you be more explicit about, like, I'm glad, and for the public record, so can you tell me when you made the application for the business case, how long that's taken, and now they push another month on it? It seems like slow play to me. And if you could be more explicit about what we have in the queue for the next business case ATE applications, and are they specific to Commissioner Nyson-Jordan's discussion about Stoney and Deerfoot? On the record.
Yeah, on the record, they're not, because Stoney and Deerfoot are the provincial roadways that they have said there is no photo or photo.
So we as commissioners or citizens need to put more pressure on the provincial government or our MLAs, et cetera, to make that a different kettle of fish. Would that be a fair comment?
I think that'd be fair.
Thank you. Being the provincial representative on the commission.
Being the former deputy chief, yes.
I think to add to that, I think some of the conversations that we've had with ministers as well is that they've asked for the public to put pressure on all their MLAs in Calgary so that this can go forward, because it's just not one or two ministers who make the decision. So I just wanted to add that. Commissioner Wong.
Thank you. Deputy Chief O'Brien, you made reference to the Crescent Road incidents, and as a councillor, as a candidate, door knocking throughout the area. I want to say that every door I knocked that day and the week after, compliments to your service, not just for the incident, but the week thereafter, all the follow-up, the letters you left behind, checking on them twice over. They really do appreciate that. Thank you for that. Following on a similar vein that Vice Chair Ogle made, the number one comment I get is around, and as Troy McLeod's here, the number one complaint I get is motorcycling stunting. Motorcycling stunting on Memorial, or Crowchild, pulling wheelies, and the noise that goes along with that. And I keep saying to them, imagine a police officer trying to stop a guy doing a wheelie. But the question I have is, how do we ensure that we can get cyclists to behave better than they do today?
I think we seize their we seize their motorcycles if they're driving that way. Ultimately, might be one way. I can tell you that when we have motorcyclists that are driving that way, when they're taking off from us, when they are driving like idiots, they're putting themselves at risk. They're putting others at risk. We have resources. We do lay charges. Most of the time, those are criminal charges. We've used our helicopter and covert resources at time. But again, you've got somebody driving like an idiot. They're going to hurt themselves or others. And it's, I don't know. Like, at the end of the day, Councillor, I'm not sure the best way to do it. I think that if people don't take self-responsibility, then maybe family has to take responsibility. I'm not really sure. Or again, we're laying criminal code charges when people are driving that way, but maybe part of it is a seizure of their motorcycle.
Just following up, when you talk about the public service videos you do, is there something similar that can be done with motorcyclists?
Michael, maybe Director or Executive Director Nunn might have.
The majority of it is speed related in general, but I am going to find out if there's anything specific to motorcycles. I believe so, but that could be coming further along in the campaign or towards next year during the biking season. I'll double check that.
I have a couple of questions. So, can you take their bike?
Yeah, it's these cars all the time.
We can, and at times we do for sure. I think for some people, I think what would be nice, well, yes.
Okay. So let's take their bikes.
There probably has to be, I would just say this, there probably has to be some additional consequences. So
Correct.
we have seen it before
Yeah.
where we've seized vehicles, they're turned back over fairly quickly. Obviously there's a cost, but that's just a tax for some individuals.
Mhm.
And quite frankly, I'm not a TikToker, but people enjoy putting those things onto social media, and they get all these likes and clicks and follow, and that seems to be more of an incentive than the fines or taking their vehicle.
Agree. And I just wanted to comment on the traffic safety communication that you're doing. I did hear one of the commercials the other day, and it was quite emotional having this woman talk about it. So thank you for that. I'm hoping that appeals to people's senses a little bit. The question I had was for Deputy Chief Rashid. Can you talk a little bit about the youth crime? Because we're hearing some very, very strong actions. Like, these are bus drivers that they're beating up. There's robberies. And I'm not trying to be flippant, but do these young people not have anything else to do? What are the reasons behind them doing this? Have they shared, or like, are they bored? Like, it's actually atrocious, the stuff that's happening in our city.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Chair. Lots of theories around, youth crime and why it's increasing for sure. Again, not to be flippant, but yes, in many cases, these kids don't have anything to do, which speaks to the power of the restorative justice and the prevention intervention programs that gives vulnerable kids an alternative narrative to which to exercise their time and energy. As I mentioned earlier, I think so a lot of work was done, if you remember, back in 2020, 2021 under the Public Safety Task Force. It was great work that was contemporary for its time. We fell into the pandemic. There's many of the recommendations within that report that are still contemporary and relevant today. So I think we leveraged that to find out which recommendations weren't actioned at the time and see if there's some opportunities there. I think another opportunity for us is an offender management program. For many years in Deputy O'Brien's bureau, we had offender management dedicated for youth in the various districts. So we look at how that's working and see if there's ways that we can revamp that. As I said, youth unemployment continues to be a factor which I believe is contributing to youth seeking out opportunities of crime, theft for cell phones, high-end clothing, like Rebecca mentioned. And I think there's programs across the country that provide empowerment and employment opportunities for youth that we could look at to partner with community-based organizations to see if we can dissuade youth from becoming involved in crime. Specific to your question about the types of crime that we're seeing, it's not property-related crime. It's crime in and around assaults where people are being violently assaulted, and it's use around weapons and personal robberies where weapons, airsoft guns, we had a media campaign about that earlier this summer, are prolific in our youth. So while I am very thankful that we have robust infrastructure in around prevention, intervention, outreach, and education, I think that we need to take a very deliberate and purposeful look around enforcement as well and see where we're at with that.
Thank you. I'm just going to go to Commissioner Hope, and then I'll go to Commissioner Whiteness.
Appreciate it, Chair. And this is a message for Deputy Chief Rashid. It's just one question. Given the discussion that we're having as a continuation that CSO and Vice Chair Ogle had about the CPS being required to do more with less. Operation Ripple, it seems like it's a not necessarily brand new, but another wrinkle that CPS has to adapt to and resource. Where does all those resources come from, and how is that being managed as crime is sort of manifesting itself in very, very different ways than it would be sort of 5 to 10 years ago?
That is a great question, sir. And so just this morning, Deputy O'Brien and I had a conversation about how we continue to resource. We're doing lots of outreach, lots of engagement. Calls are coming in from the community, which is fantastic. We want to investigate each one of those. But really, like my robbery team is at 50% capacity. So I spoke with the staff sergeant in robbery just yesterday. He said, if we get another report, we're going to have to be innovative in how we resource those incidents. So I spoke with Deputy Chief O'Brien today. It might be a case of dedicating my small but mighty robbery team entirely to Operation Ripple. And then when the bank robberies come in or the convenience store robberies come in, I'll have to rely on Deputy O'Brien's frontline investigators to help me with those. Another more palatable option, given the provincial, national, and international scope of this, is to rely on our provincial partners. The alerts team, for example, falls within their mandate. And so discussions around a joint forces operation, leveraging resources from partner organizations, might be a more capable way to resource it.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks. Yeah. I just want to pick up on the youth. Like you mentioned youth employment, but we're seeing kids that are 10 years old doing this and there's no consequence. You go even talk to teachers in the classroom and they're struggling with discipline. So how are we going to tackle this when even gangs are recruiting so young because they know the justice system won't touch them?
That is a great question, Councillor. And so when I was meeting with my peers in Ontario just last week, we learned that in that jurisdiction, kids as young as 10, 11, 12 years old are being recruited to do hits, like actually murders, because there are no consequences for them. And so the response that I would offer is that it's been 15 or so years since the Youth Criminal Justice Act was implemented. The impetus or the ideology at the time was around restorative justice and alternatives to incarceration and enforcement. Perhaps it's time that we peel back the layers on some data legislation, take a look at some opportunities there as well.
Well, it is time. And so how are we going to get the work going? Because even in my community, people are asking for action. They have doorbell camera footage and they're just being told, oh, it's too bad for you. They're too young. That's not an acceptable answer.
It's not an acceptable answer. I accept that. How are we going to get the work going? I think, like I said, we've identified a community partner that has also received some funding through the GGVAF funding and is partnering with the University of Calgary to look at some of the gaps in some of the theories around youth deviance, some of the gaps in response to youth deviance. I have a meeting that I'm trying to set up with this individual over the next couple of weeks, and one of the focuses of that research is going to be to look at legislative gaps and how we can fill those gaps. So I think that's a good place to start, at least.
It is a good place to start, but it feels so late given like there's other cities in Canada, like you're already highlighting, that are ahead of us on this. How do we actually make sure we're not just picking up where from ground zero when people are ahead of us, at least acknowledging this and doing the work? Someone's got it. Go for it.
Yeah, sorry. I'll speak a little bit, and I know Deputy Rashid and I met last week, twice already this week. Met with Superintendent Smart and Superintendent Bell from Deputy Rashid's shop, who are going to be leading our strategy in and around the enforcement and prevention piece. All the prevention pieces formally fall within my bureau. I met with YouthLink today with Superintendent Smart on the efficacy of youth programs and how we direct the little resources we have, but use probably one of our biggest, most overt crime prevention connection with kids in schools and the youth in Calgary is YouthLink. They reach tens of thousands of youth a year with very limited resources. So it's time for the CPS, it's time for the community to look at what is our investment in crime prevention, not just an in-kind service, but actual dedicated dollars. But we have to do some research on the efficacy of where those dollars go, where the community problems are, what the demographics of our city is, and how that's changing at 100,000 people a year, and how we can target those specific communities that might have troubled youth within them, that might not want to report to police or don't have the same connections with the CPS or police or municipalities as they maybe once did 10 to 15 years ago when the more traditional crime prevention programs were working. What we do now, we don't want to change it. We want to enhance it and involve it, but it's going to require, like Deputy Rashid said, enforcement. 100%. We have to enforce the crime of those youth, hold them accountable, but we also need to adapt some of our prevention programs. It's going to require some more investment, though. Our diversity resource teams, just like robbery, our crime prevention teams, are running at 50 and 60% at best. And any draw we take from patrol just depletes it even further to complement these programs to make them more robust and enhanced. So it's definitely a complex problem to solve. I won't say we're solving it overnight, but we're absolutely on top of it, meeting at the top levels within the organization every single day. And so part of my meeting with YouthLink today was how we can assist them with research to extrapolate on their programs and services, that we can target our resources through them to have the biggest outreach and impact. Obviously, social media will come into that through Michael Nunn's group to determine how we do this. So anyway, lots of work underway. But we want to complement the programs that we already have, as you guys well know. And I think three of my divisional reports will be before you next month, talking about the SRO program, the reimagination, also in and around the arrest diversion project with the SROs and across the organization, along with the youth services programs that will be wrapped up in that report. I think there's 4 notice of motions from March that are coming back that talk about a lot of this stuff in youth crime intervention. So.
Okay, yeah, I'll stop for now.
Commissioner Hanson.
I don't know how to run the mic. I just wanted to ask, do you find that and I don't know if you have the stats about this, but do you find some of those kids are coming from foster care, coming from group homes, they're coming from homes that are not parented?
Sorry, Commissioner. I'll definitely take that one away. I would say it's all over the map on it. We have kids alike from what we would determine as affluent homes that are committing crime as well. So it's all over the map. I'll bring that back.
Okay, thanks.
So just a couple of comments. So I appreciate the fact that you're partnering with folks who are already doing this research. I think that's great, because then there's some actual other work. You don't have to do that. So that's fantastic. And, you know, I'm just going to be flippant again, but this youth thing really is bothering me quite a bit. You know, the CPS did a whole campaign around, did you lock your doors? Did you turn on your lights? Did you do all this? Maybe we need to do a campaign on, do you know where your 10-year-old is right now? Like, I mean, there's got to be a component that's got to go back on to parents or the community as well. It cannot just be officers and just not offender management. Like, other people need to take responsibility for this as well. So,
and Chair, if I may, when we go out and do some of our community town halls and go to community events, we actually have parents come and ask us, how can the police help us, and what can we do to, because some of them are afraid of their kids. We actually have a town hall on Thursday And so we'll be happy to report back on that. And there's no doubt one of those pieces that will come up is around youth crime and what can we do. So you've heard all the other pieces, but some of the parents and families are coming to us and asking the police, how can we help them because they're afraid of them.
Great, thank you.
Sorry, can I just add to that?
Sure.
So in terms of your comments about the communication side of things, that's definitely something that we've got on our radar as well. So Brittany Clarkson in our shop has already developed a communication strategy that will be rolling out in connection with the work that we're doing from enforcement and prevention as well. So that's coming.
Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions? Right, thank you for those reports. So if I could please get someone to move and second to receive the chief's reports. Commissioner Ogle and Commissioner Mallon. All those in favor? Great, thank you very much. Next on our agenda is an opportunity for commissioners who represent our commission on various external associations and committees to share any information they would like. There's no presentations, but do commissioners have any questions for any other representatives? Great. Are there reports to accept? I don't have my. Okay. Could I get someone to move in second to receive the representatives' reports for information? Thank you, Commissioner Noga and Commissioner Hope. Anyone opposed? Great, thank you. That is the end of the reports and presentations for today. We will now invite public guests who've registered to speak to do so, but my understanding is that we have no one registered, so thank you for that. Moving on. I just want to thank everyone for joining us today and for the, at this point, Chief McClellan and I will move to the podium shortly where we'll be able to answer questions from the media. Everyone is welcome to stay and watch our media availability, but only recognized members of the media will be able to participate. For commissioners and members of the service participating in the in-camera portion of our meeting, we will take a break before continuing. Please keep this room quiet until the media availability is finished. And if you are joining remotely, please remember to rejoin us using the in-camera link. Thank you for everyone who's joined us here today.
All right, it looks like we don't have any questions today. Thanks, everybody. That now concludes the public portion of today's meeting. Thanks for joining us. Have a great evening.